And this is my last lecture. It's all presentations after this, so anything you want to see is your last chance to make requests or anything. Just a small group of us, so if you want to see anything, I'll be more open to things. If y'all have suggestions. I do always have the lecture channel open on Discord. I know it doesn't really get used in this class, but if you have suggestions, anything you want to see in this last lecture, or else I have my plan and I'll just go through with it. But I'd rather take requests and do something I know at least one of you will want to see. So real quick, just because we're coming up to presentations, this is my last chance to say anything about it. Presentations, 8 to 10 minutes. Not all team members have to talk, but everybody needs to be here. And please be on time. Don't show up at your presentation time. It's possible, I don't know if I'll follow through with this threat, but it's possible that you'll come into an empty room and you won't be able to present and it'll just be a 0. Especially if it's, I probably won't do that for one of the lectures, but for the final exam time, if you're putting me in a spot where I got to spend an hour of my day sitting there waiting for you, just in case things get ahead of schedule. That might not happen. We'll see, but just be on time. It's generally a good habit just to be on time for things and not showing up, on a technicality. Well, technically, we signed up for 10:40, so that's when we're exactly going to show up, But anyway, unless it's really egregious, I don't think I'd follow through on that, to be honest, anyway. So the presentation is 3 separate parts: a demo, the architecture, and a reflection. So demo, show me what you built. I want to see your sites. Go through the features, show off all 5 of the features, show everything working. For the software architecture, explain what you used, the frameworks and libraries, and give some detail about how they work. To the level of speaking to a technical audience, and that technical audience who understands web development but might not be familiar with the frameworks that you use should be able to understand what you did and how you got this app working, to the extent that they could go and build kind of a duplicate of your app. So don't go into too much detail, but at least explaining those frameworks, libraries, how they interact with each other. We used Flask in Flask Socket.io. Socket.io handles the WebSocket stuff, and just explain that high-level architecture of your app. And finally, reflection. I think I always find this the most interesting piece. I shouldn't even say that. The only reason the first 2 aren't as interesting is because I've seen it all before. I've seen every framework that students are going to choose. I've seen all the apps working before. But this one is usually different based on each team. And it's very helpful for me to get these reflections to be able to pass on to the next semester and be able to make adjustments. Of course, I use the course evaluations as well, fill out your course evals, and revise based on that. But also these reflections. What would you tell your past selves if you could go back to the beginning of the semester and talk to your team, which I exactly translate into what I'm going to tell the teams at the beginning of next semester. If there's a common thread, a common theme that comes up in multiple presentations, I like to pass that information on to the next semester and be like, hey, this is what teams have done in the past that have been the pain points for their project. Try to avoid these things. And I've used a lot of these from the past 2 semesters to make the project this semester a lot less painful as well. This project has gone, at least so far, of course, we'll see when the grades come in. I'm expecting them to be good. I don't know, I'm optimistic on it. The project has gone way smoother this semester than it has in the past 2, largely because of these reflections. I find out what teams went through, what the pain points were, and I can remove those pains. And I feel like a lot of the pain points are out of the project. The remaining pain points are just actually doing the project and writing the reports. Reports are always going to be painful, but that's a learning process. You're learning throughout that process. Even if what you're learning is, holy crap, these external libraries are messy. Like, there's all kinds of crap going on in here, and it's hard to read. Even if that's what you're learning, that's a valuable lesson. Understanding how much work and design and architecture went into the libraries that you just get to go import Django, and then everything just magically works. It's really valuable to see what's going on with those. All right, course evals, you might have seen me update this just before lecture, and we did hit 70, so we're at 2 dropped objectives. I'll I'll send at least like one email notification later on in the semester. There's one thing in the eval system. So we got our 70. There's one thing in the email system where I can email only the students who haven't filled this out. I'll do that at least once, so we should see another push. I'm optimistic that we'll get up to 80. I said this on Wednesday. I'm optimistic we'll get to 80, but 90 I think is a stretch. So hopefully we'll get up to 80 and drop 3 objectives, but dropping 4, that's tough. That's tough to get to the 90, which I kind of don't want to drop 4 objectives, but that's my way of saying, hey, if you give me 90% and give me a lot of good feedback for next semester, I'll let you drop 4. But that's kind of a stretch goal. 80 I think is reasonable. We already got to 70, so I'm happy to see that. And finally, what are we doing today? Well, nobody's using this post except Anonymous Adam, and we already covered that. So it's wide open what we're going to do today. I'm open to suggestions. I'll check if anybody's using the channel. Nope. Anybody have a suggestion that you want to see? If not, it's my choice. Yeah. Authentication tokens? You want me to go over homework solutions? I said I'm open to things. That's kind of what I meant. Yeah, we can try that. Do you want to be a little more specific? Like what specifically about authentication tokens? You have no, so everything about them you want to talk about? Okay, so let's start by pulling up the homework doc. And authentication tokens. Now, I don't know if I'll see if it makes sense to go to the code for this. So authentication tokens, when somebody logs in, you want to set a cookie that's going to be their authentication token, which is going to be checked whenever somebody revisits a site. So like, for example, Google. So for example, when I log into contacts, clients, it's going to be this one. Secure, I would guess it's this one. Well, it's going to be one of these secure ones. At least one of those is going to be an auth token. So when I log in, there's going to be a cookie set that's just some random-ish value, random to us value, which I'm not going to scroll over the values because I don't want to leak my authentication tokens. But there's going to be some random token that's going to be assigned to you and set as a cookie. Now, whenever I make another request to the server is going to check that cookie and say, oh, we issued this cookie to Jesse. If the request contains that cookie, then this must be Jesse, and he must be authenticated. So this is what we want to build in the server. So we want to say, once you actually log in, once you successfully log in, you're going to set that token using a cookie. Generate a random token, enter into your database that token associated with that username, and then set that as a cookie for this user. Now, whenever you see that cookie with that token, let me back up. Whenever you see a cookie that's set, you're going to read that token, go to your database and say, wait, who's this token associated with? Get the username, and then say, okay, you are authenticated as this user. Everything checks out, that token's in your database and everything. You're going to display a message and just verify on your page that, hey, you're logged in, welcome. You see this in, on actual apps like this, being logged in. We're simulating that feature by just saying welcome. We're not building out the front end too much, but we're saying, hey, you're logged in as you. We know who you are. Welcome. You can navigate the site as you. So that's this in the corner right here. For most sites, you have your login there. We just want to do something to verify kind of a proof of concept that we can do that same thing. So we want to say, okay, I read your authentication token, I looked you up in the database, everything checks out. You are who you say you are. Welcome, whoever you are. If the token isn't set, do I even say anything if the token isn't valid? Homepage should be displayed. No. If it is valid, I guess I don't say anything if it's not valid. Do you have to what? Yeah, that's what I was looking for. I should have done it here as well. For anything else, yeah, I do have it here for the authenticated only page. I should have it on 4 as well. If the cookie exists but the token is invalid, I would like that to be a 403, but I guess I didn't add it to the objective, so it's not required. If the token is set and it's invalid, I suppose you would treat that as if the token didn't exist. I don't know, it's ambiguous, so we're not going to take points off for that. If you lose points, you can email me and I'll give you your points back. But if the token exists and it's valid, meaning that it is in your database, pull that username and just display a message to them. You feeling good about that? Does that answer the question? Or is there more you want to talk about? I can try to go to the code. I don't know how much of this I could do off the top of my head. So I could do this in the code, but it'd be a little bit of looking back to my cookie slides and making sure I get all the right syntax, which is updated. Thank you for those of you who pointed that out. I had colons instead of equal signs in my slides for the directives of the cookies. The TAs let me know you were all on Piazza about it, and I had to update my slides, which is important. As we saw Wednesday, I use my slides as reference fairly often, so I want my slides to be current, be accurate. Yeah. And for homework 4, since I don't specify it here, no, but should I add that next semester? I guess it would be the username. You could have a username with HTML, but that username is only displayed to that user, so it technically wouldn't be a security risk in this case, because we're not showing usernames to any other users. So probably even next semester I wouldn't. Unless I expand the homework. I might expand the homework to encompass like the whole project and then change the project into something else. And then have like DMs and user lists and things for the homework. So just a heads up, by default, I'm going to pick, I don't know, I was just going to go through like homework 1, go through the objectives on the live site and add them. That's kind of my default. I don't think that's super interesting. Maybe it is. It might be more interesting if I start at homework 2 and then just see how far I can get in homework by the time's up. I don't super want to do that. So if you want to see that, let me know and then I'll do that for sure. But I'd rather take requests and make sure that somebody is getting something out of today. And we can talk about whatever. I always like towards the end of the semester, do reflections on the course and how things went and things like that. If y'all have things you would want to see next semester, or we can just save that for the course evals, you can just let me know there. Yes, thank you.
How would it be if you added like doing UDP stuff?
Ooh.
Video or something? Like, is that a lot to add? Or?
That would definitely be a lot to add, but could I? So the first semester I did this, I did streaming video, but over TCP. And, oh, sorry, no, not streaming. So streaming is kind of ambiguous, at least in my mind. Maybe I'm just wrong. But like is YouTube streaming is kind of my question. It kind of is, but it's not necessarily the way we think of it. I think of more like Twitch as streaming, where it's live. I think that would be a lot. It's something I haven't really thought about introducing UDP. Because a lot of streaming, unless it's like, oh, I just realized I haven't ever looked into this. But I would assume Zoom is over UDP, for example. because there's live two-way communication. But something like Twitch and YouTube Live are all TCP. So if I did it in this course, I would probably stick with TCP and do it that way, just so we're not introducing something completely different. But it's something I haven't done, is building something pretty big on top of UDP. So I think that's something I'd have to play around with over a break. Maybe it is straightforward enough using UDP instead of TCP. Yeah, right. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to use the TCP. Wonder. Let's take a quick look. UDP server in Python. Google will always know what I mean. It's still socket. Oh, right. Yeah, you just use the. Not there. Forgot when you use sockets, you can specify different protocols. Right, but that's different if I don't want socket server. Yada. Socket, yeah, sock stream. Why don't they just call them TCP and UDP? And sock dgram. And you can listen and then send to, and you know, maybe we could do that. It's similar enough, but we wouldn't be able to use socket server. Possibly, I'd have to look into that to see if we could still use socket server, but as UDP. That'd be tricky. That'd be tricky, but I'm intrigued by that idea. I do like that. Because the first time I taught this course, I had this vision that we would actually do, that we'd build a Twitch clone. That was kind of my goal. Starting with a TCP socket, build a Twitch clone. And have it talk to your hardware, grab your camera, and do the whole thing. Which is certainly possible. I got like half of the way there. I had, as the last homework in the first semester I taught this, you would upload MP4 files on the website and then host those MP4s, which was kind of similar to the way we did images. It didn't add too much more to that. But then I threw a twist in there and said you have to encode the videos. Like you can't host them as MP4. You have to host them as AAC. I forget the format even. It wasn't even that long ago. But you would have to host them as a different format that's made for streaming that can, like we take these for granted when we're surfing the internet now, but where you can change the quality of the video and it automatically adjusts for your connection strength. You had to host it in a format that allowed for that, and you had to host it in at least 3 different formats, 3 different video qualities. So they had to do some encoding and stuff like that. And it was kind of like the security thing where it came down to just putting the right line of code where it needs to be. And it wasn't super interesting in the end, programming-wise. It was a cool feature, but it wasn't super interesting programming-wise. So I'd like to revisit that and actually have, connect to your webcam and everything and actually stream the video. So the shorter answer is I'd like to do that. I got to do a feasibility analysis. But that is something. And that's one thing, if y'all have suggestions, this is one of the things that I really like to know. And if you don't want to say anything now, you can put in the course evals too. But actually, everybody here probably filled it out already. I don't know if you can edit after, but what should be added to this course? Like, is there anything that you expected to see that you're kind of bummed that you didn't see in this semester? Those are the things I really want to know, because that's what I would like to add. Kind of like the video streaming. That's something I want to add too. That's why it struck a chord with me. Like, I want that too. Yeah.
I wasn't bummed about it, but like I thought we were gonna like look into like Flask or like Bottle and stuff, because I know a lot of websites are made using those, so I kind of thought that we were gonna do some of that, but I'm not upset about it.
And that is. So the first time I taught this course, I split the course 50-50 where half of it was starting with the TCP and building from scratch, and the other half was exploring various frameworks. It was Flask and Express. So we got Python and JavaScript in there. So I did used to do that. The problem, I shouldn't say the problem I had, but yeah, why don't I do this actually? So the problem I had is I couldn't fill up half a semester with the framework, because I show the framework, I'm like, remember when it was a pain in the ass to do this? Here, you just like write these 5 lines of code and it solves all of your homeworks. and yeah, why don't I still do that? Like, maybe that's what I intended to do this week. I mean, let's do that right now. I should dedicate at least 1 lecture to that. What do I want to show? I mean, the course website uses Flask. But I don't really do anything. The course website is pretty simple. And it's not even showing my stuff. So the course website is pretty simple. I use Flask. I kind of use Socket.io, but I'm not using it right now. And then I have a couple paths. So Flask and any framework that you use, any framework you use for your project, it's going to work similar to the server that I showed, where you're not going to have some big if, else if, etc. But the framework itself is going to have some way for you to specify on this path with these methods, specify path and method, and then specify a function that's going to be called when the path and the method matches. So there's some way to set that up, and then that goes into the server, which is app here. That's the app that I created. It's going to go into that app, go into the app's router, and then when a request comes in, that app's going to look at all the routes that you added and then match which one it's supposed to match, or hit your 404. So I'm adding my paths. This is, I think I disabled it because nobody ever used it. But there's a hidden, or at least was a hidden chat feature on the course website. So my intent was, early in the semester, I'm going to show you how to mess with a web page's HTML and go into the console and everything. And then everybody's going to go to the course website and mess with my code, and they're going to find this hidden chat feature. It was a whole sidebar in the course website, except it had a hidden property on or attribute on the div. So you'd find that, you'd be like, what's this? You'd delete hidden, you'd find the secret chat, and then you'd chat with other students who found the secret chat. And then I'd have it on mine because I'd have a browser extension that exposed it and everything. Nobody ever looked at the the website code, so nobody ever used it until I pointed out. It was late in a semester where I'm like, nobody ever found this, and I showed it off in lecture, and then a few people chatted, and then never used it again. So I was kind of bummed that it never really got used the way I intended. So I just let the code kind of get rotten and moldy. So I don't think it's running right now. But this is what this is. So whenever you get a post that's sending a message, I'm going to do my regular stuff, escape the HTML, and add it to the chat history, which I even commented out my database for some reason, and switch to data structures. I don't remember why I even did that. Why would I do that? It must have been causing an error at some point for whatever reason. I didn't feel like fixing it. I think that's where I let the code go stale. I didn't feel like fixing my database error at some point, and then I just said, you know what, nobody uses this anyway. I'm going to switch it to data structures and let it die. And then whenever I get a request for get messages, I'm going to send that whole chat history. If I don't specify the method in Flask, it's going to default to get, so I don't have to specify if it's a get request. So get messages, grab those messages, and then I'm also using WebSockets using Socket.io. So from Flask Socket.io, the wrapper library for Socket.io to be used with Flask, I'm going to wrap my app in that library, get socket server, which is different from app. So these were apps, just adding my routes in a regular Flask app. And then socket server, this is my Flask app wrapped in this Flask.io layer. So for this, when a user connects, I'm just printing to the screen. I used to do more stuff, but I'm not now. When they disconnect, just print to the screen. That's not interesting. I don't know why I even left those in. And when somebody sends a message, so earlier that code was for, of course, HTML, AJAX, and stuff to be able to get the chat. This is the WebSocket version. When somebody sends a message, don't do anything, as it turns out. Maybe this wasn't the best example because all my code's not even being used. But insert it into the database. Oh, piss off. Never mind. Insert it into the database, escape the HTML, escape the HTML. And then blast that message out to all users. Broadcast equals true means send this to everybody who's connected. And that's everything. Yeah, the WebSocket is just one message. And then my actual routes. Somebody requests the root route, just send them the home page. Somebody requests /chat, send them chat. And if somebody requests any static file, this is something I definitely want to add to homework 1 next semester. If somebody requests any static file, send them that file. So like in my HTML, all of my static files are going to start with static files. So whenever I get a request that starts with static files, look in that static files directory and just serve whatever they requested. And this is where like all the content is on my slides. I'm self-hosting all the libraries. I've had problems with CDNs. Sometimes CDNs go down or they time out or whatever. And then somebody loads up your page and there's no bootstrap on it. And there's no styling, or there's no jQuery, or there's no sockets. It's fairly rare, but it's happened at least once to me. And after it happened once, it's something I don't want to happen again. When I have live sites with live users, students going to the course website, I don't want it to look like crap because the bootstrap CDN decided to not serve that request. It sucks. It's stupid. So I don't want that happening. It happened at least once to me, so I have to assume it's happened maybe hundreds of times to students across all page views. Not something I'm going to deal with, so I'm self-hosting all the libraries now that I need. And then whenever I need something from that static files, I'm going to prepend it with static files and then the file name. And then in my app, I'm going to say anything that starts with static files, whatever comes after that is the file name. And then send that file from that directory. This send from directory, and I'm going to specify the directory static files. That's going to make sure that the file that's served is in that directory. So this is, like in the homework, we said, don't allow the user to have any slashes. Don't let them navigate your directory structure. This send from directory is going to do that. It's going to solve that problem for us. It's going to say, serve a file with this file name, but only if it's in this directory or one of its subdirectories. Don't serve anything outside of that. So this file name can contain a slash. For example, well, let's go to a lecture. For example, slides / whatever my PDF is called. So it can contain a slash, but it has to be contained inside the static files directory. So slides / this, it's going to look in static files for slides / whatever. But I can't do like slides. I can't do like .. or anything. I can't do ~/ all that stuff's going to be checked by that Flask method that I think actually functioned at that point. It's going to be checked by that function to make sure that it's in this directory or one of its subdirectories. So that's solving that problem that we had before. And of course, all my no sniffs on each of these. Run it. And that's all the code. Like I don't do, what the hell is that? I don't even know how I brought that up. Not like that. And that's all the code. I don't do much. This is this is what I call a poster site, what I called a poster site earlier in the semester. The whole goal of this course website is just to disseminate information. Like, it doesn't have to do anything else. It doesn't have any features. Technically not even a web app because there's no interaction between users. It's just, here's information, consume it. So there's not a lot going on. That's all the Python. It's less than 100 lines of Python, and that's with all that chat app stuff. Really, it's, where is it? This and this. Like, that's all I need in this file to host my, my course website. And there's all kinds of HTML. I'm using Am I using? So I am using templates. Actually, it's been so long ago. What is my template engine? Under template. I'm just using the default. It must be. But I have these includes in here. I must just be using Flash default template engine. I have these includes in here where I'm including separate HTML files. So like when you load the course website, I don't have like one huge HTML. Like if you go to view source on the page, you're going to see one huge blob of HTML. That's very cumbersome. I want to break things up a little bit. So I have these includes. I break every week of content into a separate file. The syllabus is a separate file. The project description is a separate file. Every section is a separate file. The weeks are separate files. 1 week is almost 100 lines, so I don't want all those in one thing. Helps me stay a little organized when I have the course website by using these HTML templates. So all of these HTML files combine into one big thing by the time it's being served. But goodness, I am not managing that file. That would be absolutely crazy. I would lose my mind completely if I had one HTML file that was like thousands of lines. I ain't doing that. So I break it apart using templates. Of course, I don't have anything prepared for this, but we can go look through my repositories. I can find a more complex one because that's pretty straightforward. Question Factory. I haven't looked at this in a while, but this will be a really good one. I might. Let me look at what else. Actually, let me ask, is there anything else anybody wants to see? Because I can spend the rest of the semester doing this. I'll just go through a couple of more repos and just kind of show you more complex apps that use frameworks. Yeah?
If the course was longer, is there any other stuff, like any other content you would cover that would be beneficial to know?
That's kind of why I'm asking is what I should add. So we have a bit of flex in the schedule. I still have like, we took that week off and there are a few lectures right now. I can't really use this time because there's not enough time for you to do a homework with content that I would cover this week. That's why the last 2 weeks in all my courses I don't really cover anything because the only way I would test you on is on a final exam. And if there's no final exam, what am I doing? But there are 3 lectures earlier in the semester that, of course, we took days off. And there are a few lectures where I can still compress a little bit more. So I could squeeze like 5 more lectures into this course. And I am kind of wondering, like, what should I add? I have a laundry list of ideas. It's which ones would be the best. A few ideas is caching. I want to add actual caching using the updated headers to be able to get your browser to get the 300 level like not updated and just use the cached version in the browser. That's one thing I want to add. The streaming, I would love to get that back, but I think that would take a lot. That might take up most of those 5 lectures. And then a lot of little things that I'll probably add like in certain lectures. There are some lectures that don't quite fill up the 50 minutes that I kind of stretch out to the 50 minutes. I can compress those a little more and add some more, sprinkle in more topics randomly. I'm blanking off the top of my head, but. I missed the keyword there. Devoted to what? One lecture at the end of each unit devoted to. Oh, okay. I like that. Yeah, and kind of mix the project day and the homework, because most of the lectures are focused on the homework. If I have some more project stuff throughout. Yeah, I'd be. I'd be okay with that. Yeah, so here's, yeah, I like that. And then maybe the last lecture of each one is work with your group. And here's my laundry list. But when I say laundry list, these are all my ideas for the course, by the way. Some of these are implemented, by the way. But. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean. No, I know what you mean by that. So the very first time I taught it as a summer course, just as a pilot, I did the 50-50 where it was half the course was TCP and half the course was using frameworks. And I taught the frameworks first. So I kind of had that idea, but I executed it poorly. So I spent half a semester saying, here's how you use Flask and Express to build websites. And then I took it all away and said, now we're going to start with TCP sockets and build kind of the same features. Taking that idea, but like maybe spend just one lecture at the beginning of each module. Yeah. Because my big problem was that I spent so much time, I spent half the course on the frameworks. And then I flipped them. I did the TCP stuff first, but it was still way too much time in frameworks. Yeah. If each time I introduced a topic, I said, here's how you would do it in a framework, if nothing else, to show them like what the feature is, I think is what you're saying, is this is what we're trying to build. Now let's go to our TCP socket and build the thing. I ain't mad at that. Third-party cookies, this would be a tough one to add. Checking for closed WebSocket connections, that's going to happen next semester. I always get frustrated saying like, oh, don't worry about that. Like, with homework 3, whenever you refresh the browser and your app crashes because it can't handle that closed opcode, that should have been added this semester. I wanted to add it, and I wanted to add more opcode stuff, and I didn't even think of that one. I don't know why that slipped my mind. I can use the busy excuse this semester, but that only goes so far. I got to do more core stuff. That's definitely going to be added. I kind of talk about cores, but not really. It's just like one lecture. It's like kind of half a lecture's worth of content. Cores has definitely got to be beefed up. testing, we did this. We did that. I didn't do 500s. I want to require 500 errors, but I don't know how to see those during testing, because you should fix all those before you submit. So I don't know if it makes sense, but we added extra opcode or extra codes here. Adding the new protocols beyond WebSockets, I don't know if that's something I'll do. There's actual, I don't know, I forgot to check into this, but there's supposed to be another course offer that has 312 as a prereq. I don't know if that ever made it to the books. I don't know if the course was ever proposed. So maybe that's still in the pipeline. But there's supposed to be another course after this that another instructor was making that was going to go deeper into more protocols and HTTP2 and Quick, I think it's called, all the new HTTP protocols instead of just using 1.1 for everything. And going into like enterprise stuff. What happens when you have 1 million concurrent users? How do you handle that? And how are you going to make everything super efficient using those new technologies? I don't know if that course exists, but these topics should probably go in that course. I don't know if these are appropriate for an intro course, but maybe they are. I think we did a lot of this. We're revising reports. Reports used to be pretty open-ended. I knew what I meant by reports, but when I communicated to students, I was just like, show me how the libraries work. And I expected everybody to understand exactly what I was thinking in my head. So we made that a lot more clear. Oh, this is a whole different idea. This was, you had to do the reports before you could use the library. I don't know how I would enforce that, though. OAuth would be fun. Forcing you to use Go would be fun. I know one of you who would really appreciate that. But forcing Go, I think someday, I don't know, it's definitely not something I'm going to rush to do, but someday in like the next 5 years or so, it just feels like this course should be taught in either C or Go, and I don't want to touch C anymore. Go is kind of taking over a lot of low-level programming, especially like back-end programming for web stuff, which is exactly what this course is. So getting some Go experience on your resume and in your heads would definitely be beneficial. So someday I want to require Go. Or maybe I'll just switch all my lecture examples to Go, and then naturally students will start using it. Because a lot of my lecture examples, it's kind of a chicken and egg problem, or a positive feedback loop, I should say, where the first time I taught this, most of the class chose, I shouldn't say most, but a good portion of the class chose Python. So then I started making more of my lecture examples Python to be able to cater to the class. But now a lot of my lecture examples are Python, so then more students choose Python because that's what I'm showing in lecture. And it just kind of builds on top of that. So now most of you use Python. A decent portion of you are still using Node and getting some JavaScript in there. And just a handful of students are using other languages. I think there's 1 or 2 students using Java, 1 or 2 using Scala, and 1 using Go. I think it's just 5 students using non-Python JavaScript languages. But if I'm going to force a language, it's going to be Go. Oh, this is such a fun idea. I don't know. It would take a lot to implement this. Where I host an API with OAuth tokens that exchanges currency, and you trade these dollars around. We can even make it a cryptocurrency. It's a bit of an ambitious one, though. Especially adding cryptocurrency. Caching has to happen. Accessibility stuff, that's more of 370 territory, but I feel like I should do at least a little bit of it. Yeah, streaming didn't work. All right, since I brought this up, I do want to at least show some of this. I think question factory is the the coolest one, more commonly known as UB Infinite. If you took, you probably all took 115 with UB Infinite, right? I think, unless you were transferred. You didn't? I thought you transferred, oh, you transferred right into 116. I see, okay. Yeah, so, and then I saw you in 116, so I don't know, I just assumed. But I guess I did know that. But UB Infinite is, so it's a question site where you have all the topics of the course. Then you type your code, you submit, and then it tells you if you got the points or not. And it's gamified, like you gain experience points, and you eventually earn stars. And as you earn stars, you unlock the next topics. Then you can progress through the course. And you have to complete the whole module worth of questions, get all the stars, in order to qualify for the lab quiz for that module. So when you show up to lab, you got to have your UB Infinite done before you go in. It's all auto-graded. It uses the same backend as AutoLab for your auto-graded assignments, except it has a web interface where you don't have to upload files. You just submit whatever you type here, which has some... Yeah. Yeah, so this is what lecture questions kind of evolved into in 115. Then lecture questions in 116 kind of changed into something else. How they're, oh, you took it with lecture questions, actually. Now the lecture questions are lecture tasks, which are part of projects. Things evolve, but this is what the idea of lecture questions turned into in this. And we have syntax highlighting. This is just a library out there that gives you an IDE in a browser, which is super nice. Not an IDE, I shouldn't say, but a text editor, a code editor, which gives you syntax highlighting. So there are nice features like that. But this, so that's a quick overview of what UB Infinite is. Here's the code for it. There's a lot of it. This one took a while to write, which I'd like to get back to this one. There are so many features that I want to add, but I never taught 115 after the semester that I introduced this. And I don't know, the current instructors are kind of happy with the way it is. Dr. Hertz has added a few features, a few small features here and there, but the core of it is pretty much the same. For this, I use Tornado. Tornado works very much like Flask. A lot of the syntax is just like that, but it's made for high volume. It's made to solve the C10K problem, which is what happens when you have 10,000 concurrent users. How do we scale up to that level? How do we handle that? And we don't really get close to 10K, but we'll have, we've had 1,000 concurrents, like when we have 700 students in 115 and there's a lab exam coming up and they're all rushing to get their questions done. What I found out is some of them will have multiple tabs open, so we're going to exceed 700 at those times, which first time I saw a student with multiple tabs open, I'm like, oh, come on. I wasn't expecting that. Anyway, Tornado solves that. And then Nginx. This is still running on Apache. I've been meaning to switch that to Nginx. But again, I haven't been on the course, and the current instructors seem to be happy with the way it's going. So, anyway, I use Tornado for this. Syntax, I guess it is a little bit different now that I'm looking at it again. But I'm going to add all these paths. I had a bug, which I had a hacky solution, where if you had or didn't have the slash, something would break. It wouldn't find the path. So I just added duplicate paths to all these. It's not the not the best way to handle that, but it works. I haven't looked at this code in a bit, so I don't know if I'm really prepared to talk in depth about it. And we're at 11:10 anyway, so it's kind of perfect. But anyway, at a high level, I use Tornado and MongoDB for the database. Let's find at least some database code. You know what? I'm not going to try. It's in there, trust me. But it uses MongoDB as the database. All right, that's it for me. Next week in final exam time, it'll be presentations. I'll sit probably in the back up here, and I'll just watch your presentation. So when it's your time, when it's your turn to present, head up to the front of the room and let me know if you need anything. All right, have a great weekend, and I'll see everybody Monday.